The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Kev, we can't go to weddings at the moment, so I thought I'd deliver you some nice, heartwarming wedding news, if you're ready and want it.
Okay.
Don't sound... did you see the one it was on the BBC? It was about a couple that became Mr. and Mrs. White Christmas after tying the knot in a pre-lockdown wedding. See, I thought, first of all, you know how people change their name by deed poll? So years ago, we used to have on all the time this guy who renamed himself Mr. Christmas, and every single day was Christmas. So he got himself, he did a turkey dinner every day, sprouts every day. God, you wouldn't want to spend any room with him, would you? But these guys were actually called Tilly Christmas and Kieran White. They met at school aged 12 and they married at the Roman Baths in Bath last Tuesday. Were you their wedding photographer?
I wasn't, although one of the last weddings I did do was at the Roman Baths.
Oh, you could have had that one.
Probably not for me. You know, when I was a kid, no, it wasn't me, it was Gemma, I think. Gemma, when they used to say, got to change your name by deed poll, used to think there was a pole somewhere and you had to stand by it. And it actually meant stand by the pole. There was a pole like in London. You have to go and stand by it and hold on to this pole and change your name.
You've got to love Gemma, haven't you?
The FujiCast.
She loves simple things.
Actually, it might have been her ex-husband.
Right. Was it? Oh, right. Okay. Well,
one of them.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome to the FujiCast. We'll explain in a moment why we're sounding a little bit different. You and your questions from the electronic mailbag, and of course, also through the FujiCast private Facebook group that you're welcome to become a part of. If you want to send a mail in, you can still do so the old-fashioned way, which is click at fujicast.co.uk. If you're not a Fujifilm shooter, makes no odds, you're still warmly welcome. We've got a book of the week this week from Kev, and also we've got to do a few bump to the front questions. And Edmond Terakopian is on the show to tell us about a special auction of prints for Médecins Sans Frontières. And that's what's on the show today. And the reason why we sound a bit different, Kev, we're back in blooming lockdown.
Oh. Yes, back in my blinking living room. My desk's in a different place, though.
They've allowed you to work at home then? I thought this time with it being a little bit more relaxed, Gemma might have had you packed off to the studio each day.
Well, no, I mean, the thing is, in the studio it's just me, so I'm still going to go once a week, do some YouTube stuff and everything like that, stuff I can't do here. But you know, for the sake of the effort that everybody else is hopefully going through, then I'm doing the same. Right. Basically,
well, it's good, and that's why we're doing it like this. You're not snuck across county borders and sort of snuck through the back door to sit here and do the show with me face to face. You're in your place and I'm in my place.
Yeah,
and this is
we're not sidestepping the lines.
No sidestepping going, and we're going to carry on this way until Boris says otherwise. Or the two badly dressed scientists.
Does he still exist, Boris? I actually thought coronavirus had finished. Because whenever I go on the internet now, it's just wall-to-wall madness.
Yeah. Well, by the time this show goes out, we might actually know. Now, this is weird, isn't it? Perhaps we shouldn't put this link in because I'll have to edit it out. Oh, hang it. No, we're doing this on the Friday, and before the Monday, when we could have a new president.
We won't, but they will.
Yeah, I say we. It does feel like we now, doesn't it?
Yeah, honestly, I'm looking forward to the coronavirus news coming back. Oh. It's like, well, where's it gone?
Kev!
And Brexit? Whatever happened to Brexit? Do you remember Brexit?
Brexit? What's that?
That was a thing. Yeah, that was a thing.
Was that something?
Yeah, it was something. I think it was like in the 70s or something like that. I don't know. And this pesky virus came along. That got wiped out by some American election. Yeah. And then, well... That's it. That's all we ever talk about.
Well, no, because I dug off that nice Mr. and Mrs. Christmas story for you this morning.
You must have dug very deep into the BBC News.
Making the news. Yeah, I did, yeah. Right, let's take a face plant into the questions with some bump to the fronts after a brief word from a friend of ours, Brian Caparici, who's been working hard with his team to make sure professionals that are either in the business or about to join this magnificent industry, which will be firing on all cylinders before too long again, can be properly organised in their 2020 studios and businesses and beyond.
Sprout Studio is an all-in-one studio management suite built for photographers by photographers. You get your CRM, galleries, email marketing, scheduling, and bookkeeping all in one place. My name is Brian Caparici, and I'm a Fuji photographer, having photographed weddings and portraits for 15 years now. I'm also the CEO and founder here at Sprout Studio. This Black Friday, not only can you save, but we've gathered everything you need to redo 2020 and start next year on the right foot. Visit sproutredo.com/podcast to learn more today.
As our good friend Brian said, go to sproutredo.com/podcast. That's sproutredo.com/podcast. We will, of course, put that address within the show notes for today as well. The FujiCast, every single Monday, a brand new episode with myself and Kev. If you're brand new to this cast, by the way, welcome, because I was noticing the other we hit. Oh yes, that's the other thing I meant to mention. Half 1,000,000 downloads now. And I noticed some sort of new little spikes here and there, which seems to suggest there's some new ones around here. And if it feels like your first day at school, don't worry. It's a very safe place. Nobody's going to dunk your head in the loo here.
But you might have to wear a mask.
You definitely have to wear a mask. So
500,000. That's pretty good going, isn't it?
I was really happy with that. I was really chuffed with that. I was sitting there, like people do on YouTube when they watch their numbers tick over. And I was thinking I really wanted to catch it tick onto the 500,000. Went to make a cup of tea. Came back. It was 500,008.
No, you told me you were on a long walk.
Oh, was that what I was doing? Yeah. That must have been what I was doing.
See you covering your tracks now. You're really having a cup of tea, telling me you're on a long walk.
No, I think I did. I did go on a walk. Then came back, made a cup of tea. Shall we move on? Right, we got a few bump to the fronts here.
So the bump to the fronts, for those who don't know, are the people that have helped us out by chucking a few quid into the Patreon box, and they get kind of a little bit of priority on their questions.
Yes. Let's go for Chludis. That's the way you'd say it, isn't it?
Wouldn't want to stand in front of you when you said it.
No, not at all. Not in these ages. It's not show related per se, chaps, but I went back through the show notes. Couldn't find the name of the workout regime that Kev's doing. Something like 1-1-1-1-10 or something.
It was a long time ago. That's what it was.
Are you actually doing a workout regime right now?
I've been to the gym. I've literally just got out of the shower. I've tidied myself up. I've been for a run and thrown some aftershave on, especially for you. And but I'm not doing what I used to do, right. And that because I was doing that in the gym. So what I was doing, and I don't think it had a regime name. I found it. I stumbled across it on YouTube, and I honestly wouldn't know which video it was. But it was something that took my fancy, and it was because it was simple, and I'm quite a simple person. I need simple things.
What, this was the 1-1-1-1-1-10 thing?
Yeah, that's right. So the idea was that 3 times a week, you'd start with 1 kilometer, 10 press-ups, 10 sit-ups, and you do that 3 times a week. And if you managed it 3 times a week, the next week you'd go up to 1.5 kilometers, 15 sit-ups, 15 press-ups. If you managed that 3 times, you'd bump yourself up to 2, 20, and 20. But the caveat was that if you never managed 3 in 1 week, you had to go down a level the next week. So let's say you got to 5 kilometers, 50 press-ups, 50 sit-ups. You only did it twice a week. Then a week after, you'd be back down to 4.5, 40 and 40. And the idea was that you get up to running 10 kilometers 3 times a week and doing 100 press-ups and 100 sit-ups 3 times a week. This was a long time. This was last year sometime.
No, it was this year. You were doing it this year.
70.
No, you were doing it this year. You're doing it earlier on this year.
No, well, it was way before lockdown.
Really?
Because I was doing it in the gym, yeah. And I managed to get to the gym maybe 6 or 7 times recently. No, they've closed again, of course. But no, this was way before lockdown. Oh, okay. Yeah, definitely.
Why have you stopped doing it? Sounds like a good regime to me.
Well, because I just kind of didn't have lockdown came along, didn't it? I couldn't run on the roads because of my stupid old legs and feet and things like that. Now I've got some fancy new running dappers that hopefully will help me.
God.
Been out for a run today, so that it seemed to be all right. But I'll tell you tomorrow if the gout comes back.
Oh God.
So anyway, yeah. So to answer Claudia's question, it was simply that. Yeah, 10 press-ups, 10 sit-ups, 1 kilometer, 1.5 kilometers, 10 15, etc., etc. It's probably not very good for you, to be honest with you, but I don't care. No. Nothing's good for you.
You're not doing it anyway now, so yeah. Right, okay. We've got one here from there's 3 bump to the front here. Zishan Khan. Said, I've got a question about printing photos. Chaps, I'm getting ready to put up a prints section where people can order my prints 8-10 size. At least initially I don't want to farm out this work, so I was hoping if you could give me some guidance around it. What printer well, he's got 5 questions. What printer should I get? Now, have you got a printer at the moment?
Oh, I've only got an office printer at the moment. Right, I used to have one of those big Canon Pixma Pro 1000. I don't know what it was called.
I had an Epson.
Really good. Really good prints. Cost more than my car to run a month.
Did it?
Yeah, because the inks, if you don't use them, the inks just dry up anyway.
And don't go buying cheap inks. If you buy that, you're going to be buying a new printer.
I have to say,
banding.
My stock answer to that question is unless you really need, and there are people who need to and will and want to take full control over the print process, I just use a lab.
Yeah. Which paper? Well, which paper? You're probably going to say use a lab for black and white and colour prints. I used to use a Hahnemuhle paper for that uncoated sort of stock, which I loved. But again, that can be quite expensive.
Well, I'd speak to the lab because if you're using a lab, the lab will educate you on which paper is best.
Yeah.
There's all kinds, isn't there? You've got Fujifilm paper these days. You've got the Hahnemuhle stuff. There's loads, and I'm not. Yeah. I always remember do you ever used to get the magazine from the SWPP? Used to come like.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, there used to be a very, very in-depth article written by one particular chap.
Yeah, for the people who are into that stuff, then absolutely it would have been gold mine of information. But the density and fabric fibers of paper and everything.
He was very thorough. He was very exceptionally.
But it was like every quarter.
Yeah,
it was the same. It was
same thing.
I was like, just show us some pictures. Yeah. Anyway,
but he was exceptionally thorough, though. I'll give him that.
I suppose what we would say is, if you do want to print at home and you want to take full control, then absolutely get one of the quality printers. And I would say Canon and Epson are probably the ones in the marketplace for that. Certainly were when I was looking. Paper, I always used to use Hahnemuhle paper. It was quite expensive, but I used to use it. The black and whites looked great. I used to prefer like semi-coated matte rather than gloss paper. That was my preference. What else? That was only two parts of the question.
I want to keep it simple and offer one size. Yeah, that's fine. I would agree with you. Although I'd probably go a little bit bigger as well, maybe a 12-16 or 16-20 or something like that as well. But how should I frame my prints? I want to keep that simple as well. And how the hell do I package and ship them? Well, I see those last two play into both of our opinions on getting the pros to do it, because I think it's a lot cheaper and easier in the long run. I know, Zishan, you're in the States. But here we have, there's Sim, there's Loxley, who are all very good as well. I've used both companies. Loxley I use for printing the prints. They do a superb job, and they can now package it up beautifully and send it to your client. Job done.
Well, Michael Beecham, who's a friend of the show, he had a nightmare this week, according to his Facebook page, about sending some prints. He was doing exactly the same thing as Zishan. Printing himself, framing things himself, sending them off, glass-framed prints. I'm not going to mention the dispatch company that he used, but let's just say it went very badly.
What, with him sort of doing it all himself, self-fulfilling the.
Yeah. So if you're sending a lot of the courier companies in this country won't allow you to send glass.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
There's a whole list. I remember when I used to do this kind of stuff, I used to send things off, not way before my photography stuff, and like on the DPD website and things like that, you could get them to come and pick things up, and that used to make me feel very posh, rather than having to go to the post office. I'd have the DPD man come to my door and collect my things. But there's a whole list of things that you can't send in these things, and it's things like gunpowder, guns, drugs, body parts, glass.
Right. What? That is estimable
dead
list. Dead bodies. Glass.
Pets, living animals.
Yeah. Frames with photographs in them. Glass.
Yeah, really funny. So yeah, double check that as well. I don't know what it's like in the States, but you would need specialist insurance, I would think.
Yeah, I'm all for, because I don't think you save an awful lot of money printing this stuff yourself and sending, unless you are into your fine. I spoke to a fine art photographer the other day for Photography Daily. And we were talking, we didn't really do this bit on air, but we were talking about, getting your prints sent out. And we were both discussing printing and getting the inks and doing that and running tests and then realizing that's gone wrong and then just passing it to somebody who really knows what they're doing and prints beautifully. It's no different to the days when you would give, who was it? Was it Robin Bell, the printer in London? You'd say, all those famous photographers would say, Robin, just do the stuff. And you know that you were working with a professional who would send it to the client and they'd be happy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Some people, especially if you're doing film, of course, this is part of the process, and so some people, this is the important bit or more important bit.
Yeah.
And they want to take full control of it. So I'm assuming that Zichan's fallen into that category.
Yes.
For everybody else, I would just use a lab, I have to say. But yeah, if you want to take full control, then those are the kind of bits of advice we'd give you.
I've gone to the back of the studio because I wanted to just grab Robin Bell's book, because while we're talking, he was saying that some people obviously want to take the whole process, but I'm looking at names here like Bob Carlos Clark, Clive Arrowsmith, the superb portraiture guy, David Gamble, McCullin, Patrick Litchfield. Come on, Patrick Litchfield. I mean, these are names that have Stephen Burkhoff, Terence Donovan, Snowden. These are people that never did their own printing, but they trusted this chap, Robin Bell, to do it.
And of course, it was different in film days.
Yeah. But you could argue now that it's different, but you're still entrusting a professional to print the stuff for you, so you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not the end of the world if when you're giving somebody your negatives and all that kind of stuff.
Oh God,
That's what I mean.
So thank you, Zishan. Oh, do you want one more, and then it's your question? But this the end of the bump to the front. Guess who we've got next? We got Tommy Two-Toe. He said, "Hello guys, I wanted to say I'm thinking of you with your new lockdowns. You've all been here for us consistently, so let us know what we can do for you. Perhaps I can send a bottle of Colorado whiskey, maybe fresh mountain water just outside Denver. Sounds good to me.
That sounds great, yeah.
It does, doesn't it? Then we could do the show next week with a bottle of Colorado whiskey each. Goodness.
No, but hang on. If he's sending it from America, don't post. Doesn't the post take about 3 weeks to get to places in America at the moment?
Does it? Well, yeah. Okay.
I think so. According to the election people.
We'll probably get it. We'll probably get it by the end of lockdown.
Yeah.
A question. A while back, somebody asked about the X100F showing an error message when focusing at distance with a UV protector in front of the lens, which prevents full range of movement. I can't remember which episode it was, but is this bad, or can it damage the camera if it happens enough? I was able to reset everything by turning it off and turning it on again. So I like the lower profile with just a UV protector, but we'll use the lens hood if I need to.
So this is why the X100 has what's known as a vanity ring, that little silver ring that you can screw off the front or screw on the front. Technically known as the vanity ring, because if you have something that's too close to the lens, the way the lens, I'm not sure actually with the X100V whether it's still the case.
I don't have a V, I've only got the F. So.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. The X100V didn't come with a vanity ring, so presumably because the lens it's got a new depth to it, so yeah, probably not the case. But the others did, and so if you put a UV filter on it or a lens hood or something, third-party lens hood that was too close to the front of the front element, then it would push against it when the camera was switched on, because the lens extracts and retracts. And it shouldn't. I mean, you wouldn't want to be doing it day in, day out, but it shouldn't cause too much trouble. I wouldn't have thought. I've done it millions of times, and I used to have still have it somewhere, the teleconverter, the wide-angle converter, which is much narrower than the teleconverter. And I found when I was in Argentina once, I was screwing it onto the front of my camera, and it was a bit stiff. I thought, it was a bit stiff. Maybe there's a bit of stickiness on the lens or some on the thread. I went off shooting with it, and all I could see through the viewfinder was a pinhole circle. I thought, oh my God, my camera's knackered. And but I made some nice pictures with it. It was quite interesting. It was a proper circle. It was like looking through a funnel.
Right.
And what I'd done is screwed the lens on completely the wrong way. I'd screwed the back of the teleconverter on the front, and I thought, well, actually that works. And then I wrote a post about it actually.
Is that post still available? Can we find that? Is that?
I don't know. It might be in the depths of f16.click somewhere. I don't know. But I wouldn't suggest doing it because I'm sure it's not a good thing. But yeah, so went off on a tangent. So that's what's happening. It's pushing against the thing on the front. You can get special adapters and stuff like that will allow you to use your filters on a X100. But yeah, just be careful. It won't do too much harm. It's a little bit like hitting your head against the wall a couple of times. You'd be all right, but you don't want to do it hundreds of times.
Kev. Oh, yes. Right. I think you're going for the Facebook group here for your questions, aren't you? So go on, Kev. Right.
The first one I'm looking at is it's about Capture One, and neither of us have it. But I tell you what, I'll read it out. I don't think we'll be able to answer it.
Right.
But I'll read it out, and maybe remember this is on the Facebook guide. So if you are in the Facebook group and you have the answer, then hop in and let Joseph know. So this is from Joseph Waybad. He says, "Hi gents, a Capture One question, but mainly a backup question." Oh, maybe we will be able to answer it. "After I've exported from Capture One, I've backed up my keepers on the cloud with access from my phone and my desktop. What happens to your unusable or 3-star or less RAF files on Capture One Lightroom? As a hobby photographer, my MacBook Pro HD is running low on space. I have a cheap, spacious, and portable Samsung SSD." You should be doing marketing adverts for Samsung, Joseph. "Cheap, spacious, and portable. And ready to use it, but I'm just not sure how I should utilize it, and would love some suggestions. In addition to my unlimited cloud space, which is on Amazon Prime, keep all my 4 5-star JPEGs on the SSD and toss the RAFs onto Capture One."
Right.
I know, a cringeworthy question to some, but I'm also willing to let go of unusable shots. So for the sake of keeping things lean. Cheers from West Hartford, Connecticut, USA. Okay, so Capture One is irrelevant actually to this question, I think.
Although you're the only one of the two of us that have used it, and then you sort of used it and you let it go again, didn't you?
Yes, but the question's not about Capture One. The question's about backups. So I always think, this is my personal opinion, and obviously everybody else's mileage may vary. I never take any images into Lightroom or Capture One, if you're using that I am not going to keep. Okay, so the idea of using a rating system, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1, all that kind of stuff, to me, I just don't do that. I do all of my selections first, which I use Photo Mechanic for, but you can do it in anything.
Do you do the colour things, or they're all purple, which is the number one?
Yeah, exactly. But it's just a way of identifying the keepers, and then only those get taken into Lightroom.
Yes.
Everything else just gets deleted.
Yeah, I don't keep any.
Brutal.
Yeah, I don't keep anything that I don't think I'm going to go back to. I mean, at the moment I've got plenty of room for it, but usually during the year, no. That's the last thing you want to be doing, is keeping hundreds of RAF files where you don't need to.
Well, there's two little caveats to this. So one, for client work, weddings and all that kind of stuff, I will keep the entire shoot for usually till the end of the following year.
Really? So you keep every RAF?
Well, only in that I dump them all onto one big hard drive in the studio and just keep that in the cupboard.
If that hard drive did happen to go south, get eaten by Git or something, then it wouldn't be the end of the world.
No, but for all the personal stuff, I don't keep it. And I think it's hard because, I think we've talked about this before, but if you've got 5 pictures, let's just say you and the boys go out, I don't know what, playing football or something, and Sam, of course. In fact, Sam's the only one who does play football.
She's the footballer. She plays. I mean, she's really upset because her team can't play at the moment. She scored 2 last week. Real bend it like Beckham free kicks. Fantastic. I know.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy that they... It's the same for the kids. Albi can't play football tomorrow either. You can go to school and play football with the same people you would play football with on a Saturday morning, but you can't play on a Saturday morning. Anyway, let's just say you've taken 5 pictures of Sam scoring an amazing goal, and it's hard.
She doesn't score that many. There's only 2, Kev. Only 2, not 5.
No, 5 pictures of her scoring 1 goal.
Oh, right. Okay.
Let's just say you've got it on burst.
Okay.
Come on, keep up.
All right, I'm with you.
And it's going to be hard for you to go, actually, it's my wife, she's scoring a goal, I don't want to delete any of these. But only one of them is going to be the best one. Simple as that, isn't it? And so I'll just delete the other 4 pictures and keep one. It is hard. It's not something that's easy to do. But
I wonder whether it comes with when you're shooting weddings and you're used to culling. Culling's such a horrible word, isn't it? I prefer keeping the stuff you like rather than getting rid of the stuff you don't. Well, that's why I think Photo Mechanic is a positive way of culling, because you're it's a yes, I want, rather than rubbish. And I think maybe when you do weddings, if you're used to culling, if you're used to making a lot of selections, and then I think maybe you get just a little bit braver at making, and brazen perhaps, and making those decisions as you go along to, just saying, no, I don't want that. That's the one I want. That's the one I want. That, and not overthinking it. I think that's the problem with culling. You can spend, and overshooting, by the way, those people that shoot 10, 20,000 images every single event. God, dear. I mean, you lay yourself down a bit of, gauntlet, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everybody's different, aren't they? So everybody does things in a different way. But ultimately, if your storage is coming down, if your space is low and you're finding the workflow a little bit laborious, then that's what you've got to look at. You've got to look at your workflow and the way that you do things rather than the storage, I would say. And start thinking about being a little bit more brutal with your culling. for me, the whole 4, 5, 3, 2, 1, it just doesn't make sense. If all the pictures I want to keep have to be ones I want to keep, all of the others, if they're not quite good enough, then just personally don't see the point.
Yeah. Otherwise, you end up with this the number 3, which is kind of like, it's kind of good, but slightly flawed in places. You don't know where you are. I think I'm not sure. I think it was you that introduced me to Photo Mechanic. I mean, I've been using it for years now, but I'm sure it was you that maybe introduced me to it. But actually, that is just the best way of sorting stuff. It really is. It's pretty nippy as well with RAF files, and
that's brilliant. It's a brilliant application. Brilliant. I think it's like $90 or something. Honestly, it's the latest, definitely the thing to buy first for me if I was starting everything up again.
So we're on Photo Mechanic 6 now, aren't we? Because 5 is down here on this machine, but 6 is the one I use on the laptop, which is where I do my sorting. I've noticed that 6 is a little bit more sluggish with RAF files, by the way.
Have you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely a bit more sluggish.
Try it on a Windows machine. Try it on a proper computer, see what happens.
I was speaking to a tech guy earlier in Spain who I said, are you a Mac or a Windows user? And he said, Mac, of course. Otherwise, I'm going to be buying a new machine every year. I don't talk to my friend Kev.
He can't be that good at tech.
He might have something to say about it. Well, I don't know. Once you're a Mac tech, you probably don't see the other side, do you really?
Yeah.
Anyway, have you got another Facebooker? Because I piled on a few questions for you, so...
Yes.
Take another
one. The next question is from Jonathan Crilly, and he says XS10. So XS10. S for sugar. Sierra.
Yeah. Sierra. X-ray Sierra.
X-ray Sierra 10.
Yeah.
Where does it fit into the range? Is it a replacement for the XT30, an XH1 replacement, but aligned to a different segment? And will you be adding it to one of your kits?
For me, no. No, not for me.
I'm just trying to find the camera emoji to tell people we've answered. There we go. Sorry. Those who wonder, it's much more difficult when I can't see you.
I know.
It would be terrible if we were in a kind of romantic relationship, wouldn't it?
Well, if we're in a romantic relationship, Kev, we'd be living with each other. We'd be in each other's bubble, wouldn't we?
Well, no, not necessarily. Not if you're like a 17-year-old or something.
Well, okay. Well, I could always sort of. Would Boris allow me to rejig the studio so we put up a great big piece of glass so it looks like either one of us is visiting each other in prison?
Well, I'm not saying I want to be in a romantic relationship.
No.
I'm quite happy where I am.
What are you saying? Yes, so where were we? I can't remember. Will you take this ring? Will you be my Mrs. Christmas?
Yeah.
I know who I'd like to photograph it. Hang on a minute. Because apparently, according to Sizer,
you're my favorite wedding photographer. You should do my wedding.
Oh well, yeah. Yeah. When you get married, I'll be there.
Listen to the two of you. You'd have to photograph your own wedding, Kev.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
I hope she gets married soon. Yeah. She's got a really nice boyfriend as well. So.
Don't get married yet because we can't fly to it. Wait a while, Sizer. Then we'll be over.
True. Right. Anyway, back to Jonathan's question, and I have no idea how this question made us go down that route of being in a romantic relationship.
I don't know. It's weird.
Anyway, XS10. So XS10, for those of you that don't know it, is the newest. I believe it's the newest announced Fujifilm camera. And it's kind of different to all of the others. It's more like the older kind of bridge cameras, really. In I don't know, maybe in what they're aiming at. I don't know. I held one just before it was launched, but I haven't used it or anything. And actually, it feels very good in the hand. It's got a much bigger grip, although it uses the older 126 batteries rather than the ones that are in the XT4. The thing I didn't like the most was that it had a PASM dial, which is like those of you that use Canons and Nikons will be used to it.
On the top, you've got the PAS.
Yeah, P mode, A mode, S mode, M mode. I'm very much used to my manual dials now, so I didn't like that. But it's got a fully articulating flip screen, and a sensor of the XT4. It doesn't have the same filming capabilities as far as I know. So I think it's kind of aimed. I don't think it's an XT30 replacement, and I don't think it's an XH1 replacement, because XH1 is far more capable video-wise. So I think it's somewhere in between. I think it's kind of aiming at the the vlogger market. And I think it'd be very, very good for that. It's probably not something I would buy right now, at least. Don't need it so much. I would get an X-T4 if I was buying a new camera.
Yeah, me too.
Which I'm saving up for in 2027.
That early, blimey! You must be doing well.
Yeah, 2027. So I think that's if you're a vlogger or you're into that kind of stuff, then I think that's where it's going to fit. It was interesting to see most of the marketing that Fujifilm, and this comes from Japan, of course, kind of was very Instagram orientated, the marketing. So that gives us a clue, doesn't it, at the audience that they're aiming for. So, and in Asia, that's a huge, huge market. Yes. Whether it be so big over here in the States, really don't know. But it's a nice camera. I like the feel of it, I have to say. But for me, the ergonomics were different. Yeah,
I like the big grip thing. That's why I like the X. If I could have the grip thing on my on my X-T4, like I've got one, then I'd be made up with that. But I like.
See, for filming, I agree with you totally.
Grip is really important for filming.
I want it to be as small as possible. That's why I never liked the XH1. Really, it was just big and.
You've always said this. I've never thought the XH1 is a big camera.
Well, sit it next to the X70, then you'll understand.
Yeah. Okay. Right, it's time for the interview. But before we do that, what's the book this week, Kev?
The book this week is it's called Daily Encounters: Photographs from Fleet Street.
Well, this is going to be really difficult because usually I sit here and I sort of peer over and look at the page and look at that, Kev. I'm not going to be able to do any of that this week. But a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember the book that this would have been referring to, but we were talking about the Tube in the 1980s. Oh, that would have been Bob Mazur.
Bob Mazur, yeah.
There was a comment from Andy Brim who said the Tube in the 80s, because I think we talked about it, you could smoke on the underground in the 1980s.
Yeah, well, I remember, I mean, back in my naughty days, I used to do it myself.
Well, the King's Cross Fire, as he said quite rightly, 1987, question mark, I should have checked this, put an end to that. A girlfriend at the time was caught up in that fire. It was horrendous. She got out safely, fortunately, obviously. But he said, "Don't you remember all those lines of fag butts trapped between the wooden slats on the carriage floors?" Yeah, I do. Yeah. God, yeah. So, no, that wasn't so good, was it? I don't think you get wooden floor carriages anymore, do you? I don't think so.
No, I think the last of them were on the District line, weren't they? And they kind of got rid of them probably about 3 or 4 years ago. But, yeah.
Well, I tell you...
And they had that smell. They could still smell. Each line smells different.
I tell you where you can still find them, because just in the week before lockdown, we took ourselves abroad. The Isle of Wight. There's a bit of water between us and them. and they still run, I think 1940s or 50s or whatever it is, really old London tube trains. As their overground train on the Isle of Wight.
Oh, do they?
It's a really rattly. I've got some pictures from it. Maybe I should process them and put them up. But
I bet Thomas loved that.
Oh, he absolutely adores it. And he tries to stand up and you get thrown all over the place. And it's a really, really old rolling stock. It really is old. And it's really funny because the Isle of Wight line is a bit jiggity. And going along, you're getting thrown left, right and centre. But they still have them, and that's where I don't know the wooden floors, but
I'm surprised they got trains on the Isle of Wight. I thought if you fell over, you'd reach the other side of it.
Oh, Kev, it's a little bit bigger than that.
I've never been.
Right, this week's interview. Now, it's unusual in some respects in that this is a chat about an event and not necessarily a photographer, although it is with a photographer called Edmond Terakopian, a very fine photojournalist, actually, based in London, who I've talked to, actually, on the Photography Daily podcast a few times now. And we'll link to him and his work and the event we're about to discuss too on the website, our website. Go to fujicast.co.uk, that's fujicast.co.uk, then choose this episode, number 154. On that page, that is where you'll find show notes to all that is discussed and relevant here. If you collect books, maybe you haven't considered collecting prints. Well, here's a very good place, time, and reason to start. let's start by talking about the work of Médecins Sans Frontières, what it is, who they are, why it's so important, why it exists.
So MSF, as you say, Médecins Sans Frontières, the literal translation in English being Doctors Without Borders, is an organization that basically functions as a charity. So it needs funding from people like us to help them work. And they work across the world in 70 countries, going to the aid of people who need medical attention. Traditionally, one would have found them more so in various African countries when droughts and so on happened, but they do work across the world. And now with this awful pandemic gripping the world, that's their main sort of focus has been helping communities in countries that need help, that their own medical systems aren't necessarily able to cope with what's going on. And what we're doing is raising funds to help them specifically fight COVID-19 across the 70 countries that they're working in. And this will help them get all the PPE that they need, all the other sort of medical equipment and drugs and so on that they need to help treat patients and help sort of carry on living. I mean, the project's been 7 months in the making. I've dedicated 7 months of my life along with a couple of colleagues from Eyewitness. It's taken a long time to get all the photographs together, to get photographers involved, to then find an auction house and so on. And now we're sort of in the final phase, which is a marketing, which everyone who's listening to this podcast can help with. Share the word, tweet it, Facebook it, Instagram it. You can find me as @Terakopian on social media. And if you don't have time to write your own stuff, just hit retweet. Sadly, our timing is more crucial than it was when we first set up to do this project, because it took so long to get everyone involved across the world. Time zones and so on obviously don't help doing anything quickly. But now, with the second wave gripping most of the world, the situation is really dire in many, many countries. So we're really, really desperate to help as much as we can and raise as many funds as we possibly can for MSF, for them to be able to do this crucial work, especially now that, as I say, the situation has got much, much worse.
So as much as we'd like to believe that the organisation is flush with cash because of who they are and the name that they rightly have, it sounds like they're not.
I mean, I have no idea what the financial status of MSF is, but it's a charitable organization that relies on charitable donations. They're a very well established group. They're extremely professional. But they need help to be able to continue doing the work that they do, and this is where we come in. When we started the project, we had 17 members in the Eyewitness Collective, which is a collective of photographers, and we were originally set up as this international group just to help raise awareness of why printing is so important. Prints, photographic prints, even printed books resonate with people in a totally different way than this throwaway culture of digital photography, where people swipe and scroll and swipe and scroll and spend half a second on each picture because they're bombarded by millions of images. So that's the reason behind the group. And when the lockdown kicked in, it stopped us having our launch, which was due to happen at the photography show in Birmingham in March. So we started taking to Zoom to have meetings and so on, and we've got members all over the world. And one thing that became immediately clear is, we all wanted to do something, and I came up with the idea of, well, let's have a print auction. I mean, we're talking about photographic prints. Let's just gather as many important prints as we can, important imagery, great photography, things from established photographers who are big names in the auction circuit already, to just very good photography that people would love to hang on their wall. And this idea just grew and grew, and that's what we've been working on, as I say, for 7 months now.
And it's grown from 17 to, well, there's 42 photographers in all in this now, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to make that differentiation, the 17 photographers are members of Eyewitness.
Yeah.
But the total of 42 photographers, as you rightly say, includes guests. People who've heard of our project and who we've invited over, who like what we're doing, who are, of course, huge in inverted commas, fans of MSF,
Yeah.
and want to do their bit to help fight this awful pandemic. It's a global problem. No one is safe from this, regardless of your social standing and so on, or which country you live in. It can reach out and affect anybody. Of course, if we live in more developed countries and we have access to medical care, it makes it a little bit easier. But everyone struggles across the world, so MSF is crucial in what they're doing. So the 42 photographers includes people, great photographers who we've invited to join in, and they're very generously just immediately said yes and sort of joined up with a group. We've got legends like Ian Berry from Magnum Photos, Tim Page, the much celebrated Vietnam War photographer, Tom Stoddart, who's an amazing photojournalist whose work I'm sure everyone knows, Paul Lowe, who again is an amazing photojournalist, and a whole bunch of extraordinarily talented magazine photographers, people like Clive Arrowsmith, Jason Bell, Mark Harrison, Nicky Johnson, just to name a few.
Now, I know you have two in there. There's one that was featured in the Guardian piece. There's a sort of dark, sort of foreboding picture in Hammersmith. Dark because we're mid-torrential downpour, and you have this brightly illuminated poster advert with the words "Love your job, love Mondays." So the irony and the humour in there in the foreground. Then this sort of almost silhouetted image of this chap trudging through the rain, looking like he wants to be, looking like he loves anything but a Monday, frankly, in the rain. I just want to talk about your image for a second, and then I do want to come back to some of the other photographers. Did you see that sign and visualize this moment and then wait in the rain? Because it looks to me like a glorious stakeout, Edmond.
Kind of, yeah. It's I was running sort of through the rain to the car park to get my car, and I spotted this sign, and because of the way it was illuminating the pavement and it was backlighting the rain, it just stopped me dead in my tracks, because it was very dramatic. There was a picture to be had. And the illuminated sign actually was a slideshow, so it didn't always stay on that slide, which to me was my favorite because it was the brightest. Everything else had loads of colors and so on in it, but this particular advert was plain white with some black text on top of it, a little bit of text on top of it saying, love your job. So I was waiting for that slideshow to keep rolling around until it came back to the white image, the white background image, because it was lighting the rain the best. And then I realized what the message said. I was too busy looking at the light at this stage, and of course it's pouring with rain. I've got a Leica M9 which isn't weather sealed, so kind of a little bit worried about that, and constantly looking at the scene, waiting for the right juxtaposition of things to happen. And I got a little bit lucky. Got a couple of interesting sort of figures when that bright white light was on, and then all of a sudden, this businessman, carrying a briefcase and sort of in a Mac, just ran across, and I managed to shoot 2 frames, and I was completely flukily lucky that when he crossed my path, at the same time the slideshow had gone back to that white light, and it all came together in literally a flash, and then it was gone.
And there's a second image from you. As I mentioned there's 2 of yours. I've picked out the rainy one. Tell us about the second.
The second picture I put in because of its timely nature. It's a shot I made early on in the lockdown in the UK, and anyone who's been to Covent Garden in London knows that it's such a bustling, busy, colourful, vibrant, always full of people kind of place. And I went to Covent Garden. I went to the market, which is in the middle of the square, and there's this wonderful courtyard with loads of circular tables that's always busy with people, and there's opera singers singing, and there's violinists playing and so on. It's a really, really, really beautiful place, and always buzzing with energy. And of course it was completely empty, with nothing, no sound, no movement, this kind of empty, barren place. And it really sent chills. This is a lockdown, this is a pandemic. There's the odd security guard walking around, there's no one else on the streets. And I made the photograph as part of my reportage on the lockdown, but I thought that it's an important piece to have in an auction, that's talking about raising funds to help MSF fight this pandemic. And it turns out that we've got a few other sort of images from several photographers that go along the same theme of lockdown. Shane's wonderful photograph of the virus is one of them. And the other picture from the lockdown is a great photograph, very atmospheric picture by Nikki Johnston of a soul person walking through the mist in a park, either at sunrise, I think it's probably sunrise, or it could be sunset. Wonderful, emotive black and white photograph. So we've got all sorts of themes running through, and it's been really great to see the expressive nature of us photographers, sort of including pictures that are absolutely up to date and illustrate this awful time that the world is going through.
There's some interesting media in there as well, such as the wet plate one of Greta Thunberg when she visited North Dakota last year, which I assume must have been down to the pipeline demonstrations there. So there's a wide range of media, or is that going to be a print from the wet plate picture?
Yeah, that's going to be a print. Shane's actually made 100 limited edition prints, and that's one of them. Yeah, he's very generously donated a print of that. Sort of talking of limited editions, if you look through if one looks through the catalogue, quite a few of these images are limited editions, which is an even bigger sort of kindness on part of the photographers. So there's a few of those, and for anyone who's into collecting, as soon as something is limited, it of course makes it more valuable as a long-term investment as well. A lot of the work is also signed. A lot of the work also comes with certificates of authenticity. Some of the prints are also embossed by the photographers who've kindly donated them. So there really is various levels of print in there for everyone from, serious collectors or aspiring collectors who want to start a photographic print collection, all the way to people who just love photography and see a picture that they like, and it's not going to sort of break the bank.
Well, the value in books and the value in prints is quite extraordinary now, isn't it? And I heard somebody describe it the other day as, well, it's better than buying a fine wine these days. And if you look at the images and the names behind it, I mean, Ian Berry, you mentioned Ian Berry for one. He has, from the Study the English, if you go to the Magnum site, there's the terrific picture of the lady in I think it's a Sunday best playing cricket on the beach. But that's not the one that's been selected. Which is the one that was selected for inclusion in this auction?
So it's a picture from his series The English, which is most people who love Ian's work, for them that's one of the biggest, most important pieces that he shot.
Very much, yeah.
And it's a shot that shows people out for a Sunday stroll and a picnic in a bay in Whitby. It's actually very Cartier-Bresson in feel, and it's an absolutely wonderful picture. It's so atmospheric.
Yoshi Nishikawa was a photographer. I wasn't so aware of her. I am now. I wasn't so aware of her work. She appears within the, I suppose, the fine art representation for good reason, doesn't she?
Yeah, absolutely. So Yoshie Nishikawa started her career as a commercial photographer, and then started specializing in fashion. Japanese photographer based in Milan, and she started going from fashion towards fine art and very sort of deep conceptual pieces. And up to the point that I know that during various festivals, there was a festival of photography in Milan. I think it was Milan or Tuscany, somewhere like that. The representative from MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, was actually recommending her work to collectors who were there to sort of see various images throughout the festival on what to collect, which is, pretty much the highest accolade anyone can achieve.
Yeah.
So her work features in many very, very important private collections.
This runs. It's a live auction going to the 15th of November. Do you have any indication of what buyers are preferring? Are they preferring photojournalism or portraiture or fine art?
It's hard to judge because the way the auction works. So I'm of course no expert in this, but what we've been led to understand by the sale room, who are the architecture underneath the auction, is that buyers really, they will put this on their books, and then the last sort of couple of days would then start putting in their proper main bids.
Right.
Just a very, very vague generalization is the photojournalism seems to be in demand at the moment, but who knows? There's some beautiful, wonderful portraiture of some amazing actors. One other thing with the sale room system is that because of the lockdowns, a lot of traditional auction houses have had to go online, like many businesses have, to be able to survive. Is the great thing with their system is, although on the face of it, it might seem similar to, for example, eBay, their system actually doesn't allow sniping. So if people are sort of very keen on getting a piece and want to keep upping that bid, although the timing is 5 p.m. on Sunday, the 15th of November, 5 p.m. GMT, of course, is that if there's bids coming in at that last sort of second, it continues ticking over for a few minutes, just to make sure that no one, we don't get this sort of unethical, someone comes in 1 second before, snipes it, and, pays a penny more. So in that respect, it actually resembles a real live auction. Because in a real live auction, bids continue coming in until, the person who really wants it has bid the highest that they can go to, and there's no one else in the room that can do that. So in that respect, it resembles very much a sort of a real live auction. And of course, we've got James Lewis, who's the CEO of Bamford's, and anyone who's seen the BBC's Flog It or many other TV shows and watches the news will recognize him immediately. So this is why they've gone with the sale room to sort of be the back end system upon which the auctions are based, and we're absolutely thankful that James is on board, Bamford's is on board, the sale room is on board, and all of them have waived their fees. So every penny we make goes to MSF.
Now, you've spent 7 months of this year doing this. I always wonder when somebody gets near the end of quite a time-consuming project that's been all-consuming, really, to them, what they feel like as the end line is in sight.
Yeah, I mean the only aim is to raise money for MSF. That's the only aim. And until the auction finishes, until that all the bids are in and we know how much we've raised, I can't relax. It's been, as you say, an all-consuming thing. I've been constantly thinking about this, reaching out to friends and colleagues and newspapers and magazines, and we're actively trying to get on TV as well in various countries. So, being an international group and an international effort and an international organization that we're helping. So it's at the moment it's I said this tongue in cheek to Stuart Wood, who's one of my colleagues in this, that it feels like the first party you throw as a teenager, and you've invited all your mates and you don't know if anyone's going to turn up, and you sort of but I told them to be here at 7 and it's 7:05 and no one's come. It's weird. It sort of made me feel that way, but hopefully come 7:10 the kitchen will be busting with people and the living room will be full and people will be dancing away, metaphorically, and donating loads to a most amazing organization, a most amazing group of people to help them literally save lives. It's that simple. It's great photography, it's great prints, it's great photographers, but even more important, it's a great organization that we're doing this for. So really, really hope that people, pull out all the stops and go for this full on, either as collectors, or if you can just kindly share this project online and amongst your friends and so on, it would be very, 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 very much appreciated.
Well, sincere thanks to Edmond Terakopian for his time talking about that very special auction. And if you'd like links for it, easily done. Go to fujicast.co.uk, episode number 154. You'll find all the links to all the stuff we talk about on the show, but especially this very important auction. Right, back to your questions. We're not sure if we did this one a little while ago, Kev, but Mike Watton wrote in with a question about day-in-the-life photography. But we've had 2 gin and tonics since then, so we can't remember whether we did it or not. Should we just do it anyway?
Yeah.
A day-in-the-life photography. This is an area that interests me, but I really have no idea how to approach or carry it out. Things like... Well, let's deal with all of these separately then. You do more day-in-the-life than me. I've done a few day-in-the-life, but... in fact, I did a sort of semi-day in the life just before the weekend before lockdown. How do you sell or promote the idea to a client? Let's deal with that one first. I think these have it's been a very organic process for you, hasn't it? Because I don't recall ever seeing you with a marketing a service for day in the life.
No, I do have a session on my website that's just titled Family, but I tend not to use the term day in the life.
Why?
Because they tend never to be full days. They're usually a few hours or a morning or an afternoon or something.
But I think people enjoy the concept of that more than you actually being with them for the whole day, don't they?
Yes, true. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, when it comes to, I don't do that many of them, or I don't do anything at the minute, but I haven't been doing that many of them. And it's easier, and this isn't meant to be a, non-PC statement or anything, but it's easier if you are a female to get accepted for this kind of shoot, especially when there's young children around, and that's fine. That makes absolute sense to me. So I've kind of left it on my website, and people, for example, I had an email just about 3 weeks ago from a client that I shot their wedding back in 2009. And they've got 3 kids now, and the newest one has recently been born during the first lockdown, I think. Right. So I'm going to go in January, all things being equal, and spend the morning or an afternoon with them in Oxford and do it. So that's typically where my stuff comes from people who have kept up with my website, my social media and stuff, and have been like, do you remember that thing you did for our wedding? Could you come and do it for us at home? Yeah. That's where it comes from. I don't market it. I don't sell it as such. I think it's a hard sell for somebody like me, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm interested why you say somebody like you. Why do you think it's a problem for men to do this?
Fat, middle-aged, balding, miserable.
Yeah, but we're not talking about me here. We're talking about you.
No, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm being a bit disingenuous to myself. I don't know, but I feel like it's something that I enjoy and I get excited by it, but it's not something that seems to come my way. Put it that way. But then I don't really put the hard yards into it. So I always think that for things like this, you're unlikely to get people who have never ever really the people that really want this kind of stuff are people who either already know about or understand the style of documentary style photography, or are perhaps photographers themselves, whether that's amateur or professional. Your average Joe Bloggs down the bottom of the road who's not into photography, doesn't really understand anything about it, is not likely to go, I'm going to go on the internet and search for a day in the life photo shoot. They just won't know what it's called. So what they may think is, I want some pictures of my family. So they go to the internet and they'll type in family photographer or family portraits or whatever, and that's the route they'll typically take. The idea of day in the life photography, unless you already know of the term, you're never going to just search for it. So it's hard to market it like that. It's hard to market it as day in the life photography.
With that, yeah.
So you have to I feel like you have to market it as family photography, and then you have to educate people that actually it's not your typical bog standard. I say bog standard, of course, many editorial style family photography is very beautiful, but it's not your more formal style photography. It's different. And then, of course, you have to get them across the line in terms of getting them on board with that particular style. And bearing in mind they didn't search for that particular style in the first place, it becomes even more difficult.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there was a question here which I think you've just answered as well. Although I think I've got something to add to it. Do you really spend a day with them, or just a few hours? Now, I did day in the life, which I will call it. Well, it was in this case for one of your clients when you were. I think it was must have been in August, in those days where you used to spend your month in Spain. Kev, do you remember those days? And
yes.
Yeah, and now I spent the whole day with them, and the dynamic of mum, dad, daughter, new little son, and I think there were grandparents there as well. It's not many people, and you do feel a bit like not a spare part, but you're very aware of your presence. But actually, after I'd say about an hour and a half, 2 hours, I think you're kind of like, oh, it's just Neale over there. It's all right. Yeah. So, and I spent the day with them. So we started off in the morning, went through lunchtime, the afternoon. One of them had a nap, I think, and then and then come the evening, it was tea time and brushed teeth, and then Dad was reading a story under a beautiful little standard lamp. And it kind of really sort of bookended the day, as it were. And for me, I added some sound to it as well. So we ended up with one of them semi-snoring in the cot, and it was a really nice way to wrap it off with a film of stills. So yeah, I mean, I spent the whole day there. I know some people literally, and I think maybe this is where you and I feel a bit at odds with suggesting this, but I know some photographers who stay there the night and wake up and they're literally having breakfast the next day with them.
Well, that's right, and Kirsten Lewis in the USA, she's like the I don't know what the word is. I wouldn't say the best in the industry, but certainly like the most probably the well-known,
one of the leading lights in it. That's for sure.
Leading light, yeah, that's a better way of saying it. She gets very angry when people use the term "day in the life." Very, very angry, and she's like, "It's day in the life if you start at midnight and you finish at midnight. Right. If it's anything less than that, it's not."
Is that the dog? Is that Git?
Monty's just knocked my book off the counter. I put my book over.
Oh, tell me, Monty's not knocked tea over it.
Done the other one now.
Monty, did he put his ears up?
No, he yawned.
Oh, right. That's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, Kirsten Lewis gets very angry, and she's got every right to, I suppose. Day in the life means day. Day has 24 hours. Otherwise, it's not day in the life, and she's right technically. Mm. So yeah, I mean, I promote it more as a family photography, documentary family style photography. That's kind of how I throw it together.
There we go. Hopefully that will help you, Mike. Do you know where he was from?
Yeah, well, Mike's in Australia. I think.
Sunshine Coast. Have you ever been to Australia?
No. However, I have spoken to Mike.
Have you?
Yes. Oh, very nice guy.
I thought there was a story in that, but there isn't a story in that.
Well, no, not one for on air.
Do you want to do a quick question then, book, or do you want to steam into the book?
Let's go straight into the book.
Okay.
Shall we? So, before Monty chews it.
Yeah. Full slobbers on it.
Right. So the book I have today, which you cannot see.
Yeah, although I've done some diligence here, Kev. I've got some pages, some photographs from the book up in front of me, which will hopefully make it easier.
Yeah.
Tell us about the book, Kev.
It's actually published by the National Portrait Gallery. But the authors, they're not the photographers necessarily, but the authors, Roger Hargreaves and Bill Deddes, explore the Roger Hargreaves, of course, explore the vibrancy and significance of the press photograph in the history of portraiture. Drawing on the rich archives of newspaper photography, Daily Encounters illuminates the stories behind the most compelling British press portraits of the 20th century. Right. It's a nice little book, little kind of hardback A4 size book. It's available on Amazon. I checked. It's not out of print or anything like that. It's not a photo book in terms of it's just pictures, but there's lots of description and text about. So it's as much about the photographers as it is about the photos themselves. So, for example, page 31 says there's a picture of 4 photographers or 3 photographers and a light guy holding lights. And of course, these cameras are huge because this is from 1956. Yeah, big old cameras, big flashlights.
A lot of Rolleiflexes as well, actually.
A lot of Rolleiflex. And it goes on to say the press conference quickly emerged as the most convenient way for celebrities and dignitaries to address in one go the swelling numbers of newspaper reporters and photographers. And the swelling numbers of photographers. Can you imagine? Yeah. Imagine like if they're still around 60 years later and the unswelling of those numbers. And then you have lots of kind of cutouts like that, but there's lots of full double page spreads as well, which are beautiful. Really nice kind of pictures that will have adorned the Evening Standard and the Echo and all that kind of stuff. And then there's, you kind of have pictures from the news as well, which aren't necessarily pictures that you're going to look at and think, oh my God, these are amazing. But when you read the story, so I was always, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I was fascinated by things like Dr. Crippen. You remember Dr. Crippen?
Oh God, yeah, that's very dark.
Yeah, so this is a picture of Dr. Crippen and Ethel Leneve,
Right.
22nd of October, 1910.
Right.
1910. So they're in the
long
dock.
ago, blimey.
The dramatic mid-Atlantic arrest of Dr. Crippen. Of course, he was arrested on the boat, wasn't he? As he fled to Canada, was followed by shocking details of his wife's murder and the disposal of her body. Crippen was said to have buried her limbs in the kitchen stove, dissolved her organs in acid in the bathtub, and packed her head in a handbag.
Don't give Gemma any ideas.
Which he jettisoned on a day trip to Dieppe.
My God.
During the trial at the Old Bailey, photographers packed the courtroom with cameras concealed in their hats, masking the shutter noise with a cough.
Oh, just like winning Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Yeah, just like that.
Major?
Yeah.
Major?
Imagine that now. Yeah, everybody would be giving you the corona stare.
Oh, God,
You're
yeah.
coughing.
Yeah.
You're coughing, sir.
No.
Just taking a picture. The coughing became so bad that the judge threatened to clear the press benches and banned photography from the courtroom. The ban eventually became law in the 1925 Criminal Justice Act. So there you go. Dr. Crippen was responsible for photography being banned in the courts.
No way. Wow.
Yeah, that's a great story, that Dr. Crippen thing.
Yeah,
I love that.
There's one here. It doesn't have a huge amount of story to it, but there's a byline on it from the Daily Express, 1945. A doctor. There's a guy lying on a gurney here, and somebody with a piece of paper just behind him reading. I'm assuming they're sort of testing him for what I'm about to say. So they're reading him a question, and he's lying on his back, and he's looking straight up into the air. He looks drugged, and he is drugged because he's just a doctor injects a truth drug into the arm of a volunteer in an experiment monitored by Express journalists in 1945. They were trying out the original truth drug. Whoa!
Oh, we could do with some of that now, couldn't we?
Yeah.
I'm looking at page 64. Charlie Chaplin strolling along the Embankment, London. So this was the start of paparazzi, basically. Pursuing celebrities has always been an accepted part of press photography. While the 1931 Fox photographer had none of the advantages of long lenses, he would have been working with a relatively large glass plate negative. This meant he did not have to come in too close to the subject, and the editor could then crop in tight. Chaplin had made his first triumphant return from Hollywood to his native London in 1921. 10 years later, he was back again, this time to promote City Lights, arguably the greatest silent film ever. So paparazzi, Charlie Chaplin, and I love looking at these pictures. Right, This is South Embankment. You can see it, and like the trees that are there will still be there now, and we've all walked probably in the same footsteps. Yes, the pavement will be the same. The pavement is the paving stones are probably the same ones. Corporation of London and all that. It ain't broke, they're not going to fix it. And you could probably go and stand in exactly the same steps.
Isn't that funny? Funny to think, isn't it? There's one here, Ronald and Ronnie and Reggie. Remember Ronnie and Reggie? No, but you won't remember them, but you know the story, of course. Ronnie and Reggie Cray. Anybody in America think, who? Ronnie and Reggie Cray were described as gangsters in the East End of London, weren't they? And they had a stranglehold on the area. And there's pictures of Reggie with Frances Shea, who he married in 1965, and there they are on their wedding. It's a wedding picture, Kev. It's a portrait.
Yeah, I'm looking at that one now.
Ronnie and Reggie
he got married on April Fool's Day.
Did he? Was it?
Yeah, 1st of April 1965. Same page as that. Henry Cooper, 21st of May 1966, covered in blood with his boxing gloves on.
Splash it all over.
Cripes, that's a good one, that.
Do you remember
Henry
that? Do you remember
Henry Cooper was battered and bloodied when his rematch against Muhammad Ali, the world champion, at Arsenal's Highbury Stadium was stopped after 6 rounds.
Did they do it at Highbury Stadium? Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, it's one, but it comes quite up to date as well. And we were talking about... We're talking about the anything from 1910 up to the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s. But there's one here from Lady Diana Spencer, surrounded by press photographers shortly before the announcement of her engagement to Charles.
It's a really fascinating book.
It is. I tell you what, it's very historic, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's one of those books that even if you're not necessarily into the pictures, the stories behind them are really fascinating.
I am ordering one, but I have the advantage now of being able to order one because before this episode comes out on Monday.
Well, if you wait till Monday, you could go to the very famous but frequently unvisited and unloved show notes page, where there will be a link to the Amazon book that you could purchase, and then you could give us both about 8 pence.
I'll send it to you. But am I right in thinking, I looked at the Amazon one quickly, it's not expensive, is it? It's about
£4.
£5, yeah. That's now for this.
I mean, I've had mine for a long time. I don't know.
Is it a big book? Is it a big book, Kev?
No, A4.
Right.
A4, but it was published, I'm trying to see when it was first published. 5th of July 2007.
Right, okay. Oh, right, it's a reasonably modern book.
Yeah. 2007. Yeah, so it was to accompany the Daily Encounters exhibition at the National Portrait Gallery.
Brilliant. Daily Encounters photographs from Fleet Street. I'm definitely buying that.
It's very cool, very cool.
Yeah, love it.
£4. What could possibly go wrong?
£5. I've got one here for £5.
£4.14.
£4.14.
That's my final offer.
I'll take it. Done. Right, back to your questions then. This one's from Chris Stevenson. Hello, Neil. Hello, Kevin. Love the work you both do. Keep it up. We'll try. I'm new to the business side of photography, and my question is all about contracts. Not the most sexy of subjects, but it's important, isn't it? Can you spend some time explaining what key points should be included? Well, he's got several pointers here, so let's start off with the... I suppose it depends what you're contracting, doesn't it? I mean, if you're contracting a wedding, or if you're contracting a commercial shoot's going to have perhaps some stuff in there about image ownership in a different stance to what you would position within a wedding contract. That's true, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it will be different, but the fundamental principle of a contract is it has to be fair to both parties. I've seen lots of contracts from photographers which are basically just about them.
Yes,
but it has to be fair for both parties.
Yeah.
Every clause has to be fair for both parties. Not easy for me to say. So I mean, I think our wedding contracts are pretty standard. Yours is probably similar to mine, but mine essentially covers things like what can be expected in terms of timelines, what happens if I'm unwell. I now have a COVID clause.
Yeah, I have one of those. Yeah. What does your COVID clause say? What give us the sort of gist of your COVID clause?
My COVID clause says if for some reason, so if you have to postpone your wedding because of COVID or because of a pandemic, then I will give you 18 months, and if I'm available in that 18 months, I will photograph the wedding. No kind of rescheduling fees or anything like that. Subject to me being available. If I'm not available, then I will kind of suggest other photographers for you to work with if possible. If I have to self-isolate and cannot come to your wedding, so that's the thing we all dread, isn't it? The Friday morning, you get your COVID.
God, yeah.
Your mobile phone pings, and you think, someone's left me a nice message on Instagram, and it's the government saying, stay at home.
Yeah.
Then my clause there says, if it's me that has to self-isolate, then I will do my utmost to find somebody to shoot the wedding for you. However, if I can't, or the person I find you do not want, then I will refund your fees, any fees paid, including the deposit. However, if you cancel completely because of a pandemic, then the normal cancellation terms apply, which are pretty standard. If you cancel within 90 days, then you have to pay the full amount, etc., etc. But it's you can change your date. Essentially, I'm happy for you to change the date, and as long as I'm free, I'll shoot it for you.
The COVID thing is so difficult, isn't it, to get your head around though, because there's so many things that could happen.
Well, I haven't even called it COVID in my contract. I've called it pandemic.
Have you? Just in case there's another one.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Can't wait. COVID number 2.
God.
You thought COVID was bad.
Wait till
COVID 2.
Yeah. Have you still got the abusing clause, as we used to call it?
Oh, yes. That was the other thing. Yeah. Do you still have that?
I've taken it off, and I'm wondering whether to put it back in, but you can explain what it is, because it's rather clever.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact wording because obviously it's contracty, but essentially it says you cannot reject these pictures because you don't like them, basically, because you've looked at my website, you've looked at my pictures, etc., etc. You cannot withhold payment based on the fact that you do not like the pictures, the aesthetic style of the pictures.
Or they can't chase you afterwards, perhaps, because of course with weddings, much of it is prepaid. So afterwards, are you trying to sort of stop the situation of somebody coming back saying, "Oh, well, they're not like they, and whereas."
Yeah,
they've bought into your
that.
Yes, okay, they bought into your style, so therefore they can't reject it afterwards.
Yeah, they can't basically say, you've delivered documentary photos and we wanted, formal pictures. That's what that clause is about. Yeah.
And of course it's named after. We've named it. We've called it the Busick clause, but it's Joe Busick, the amazing American wedding photographer. And that was something that I think we both heard him talk about at an event, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a Jorgensen Roadshow, wasn't it?
That's right, it was brilliant.
In Bristol, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that was a very bizarre day because I went to the loo and Joe Busick came in and stood next to me at the wall, and it was one of those moments of, right, Joe? Yeah, okay. What do you say?
Yeah, but he's probably gone home and said, "Hey, you never guess what happened to me in Bristol. Went into the loo and this Radio 1 DJ came up. Got his little tinkle out next to me. Couldn't believe it."
I highly doubt that. But it was one of those. You're right. Men find it very difficult to know what to do in that situation. But I tell you one thing he didn't do, which I see at weddings a lot. What is it about men that use their mobile phones when they're standing at the wall? Honestly, can't you put your mobile phone down for 2 seconds?
No, I totally agree. And if you have to look at your mobile phone when you're going to the loo, you're going to end up divorced. Guarantee
Yes.
it.
Right, next question of that was, because Chris had a few points here. He said, what's the best way to get a client to sign a contract? Is there a way to get a digital signature, for example? Yes, there is. You could go, there's many packages. Adobe have their own, don't they? And there's, what's that one called? EchoSign, isn't it? Adobe's?
EchoSign, yeah. There's lots of different ways you can do it. You don't need them to physically sign it these days. Certainly in the UK. Don't know about other countries. And in fact, my understanding actually is that they don't even need to digitally sign it for it to be a legal. They can just reply to an email saying yes, understood, and
that's
agreed.
contracted, is it? If
that's contractable, right, yes.
Okay.
However, I suppose it does depend a little bit on the value of the contract and all that kind of stuff, and how much you need protection. Yeah. The way that I do it is I send them a PDF still, and I just say to them, if you can sign it at the bottom, you don't need to sign it with a pen and put it in the post to me. You can just use your iPhone and scribble on it with your finger and then just email it back. And that's what most people do.
And that's what I do as well. Is there somewhere I can get a free template to edit from? The Association of Photographers used to have, I don't know that they still do, so you'd have to go and look this up, but they used to have some really handy templates. I remember because that's where I wrote my original one donkeys years ago, during the war. So I don't know whether they still have it, but it probably wouldn't be that hard to find them online. But of course, you've got to be aware that in different countries, laws, etc., will mean different things, won't they?
Yeah, so I often get people ask me, can you send us a copy of your contract, like other photographers, and I do sometimes, and I always caveat it with, look, this is just mine. You must absolutely get it checked by your own solicitor.
Yes.
Because just because I have it doesn't mean it's right, and I definitely don't want you using a contract of mine. You need to get it drawn up yourself. So I think the templates are, they're going to be pretty bare bones if they are out there. But the best thing to do is I don't know if you did it, but I did get mine checked with a solicitor who basically just said, yeah, it's fine, it's fair enough. And that's ultimately what they do. They check to make sure it's fair. I didn't want him to say, well, what if this happens and blah, blah, blah. I just wanted him to say, is this a contract that's fair for me to send to clients?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did, because the first time I did it, what you've just described happened. And they sort of made this contract really unfriendly. And I thought, I can't send that to anybody. They'll look at that and think, what's this about? So the next time I went in, I said, please, do exactly what you've just described, Kevin. That's what they did. And then finally he says, or maybe just as an idea, if you're a patron member, maybe you could provide us with your very own version to download and edit. This would definitely encourage me to sign up.
Download and edit? What does that mean?
Well, what he meant was in the patron area, if you could put up how to do your contract.
I see.
Like to join, you see. That was just, anyway. Talking of which, last question of the day, Ignacy Zilowaski.
Say that 5 times really quickly.
Ignacy Zilowaski. With whiskey. Hi, Kev. Hi, Neil. Yada, yada. Few questions for you and your techo friends at Fujifilm. I've had my X Pro 3 for nearly a year now, and iOS still does not support its natively support its RAW files. In fact, it lacks support for all recent... Do you know what Kev's going to say here straight away? But in fact, it lacks support for all recent Fujifilm cameras, the X-T4, the X100V. It's incredibly frustrating, since most photo editing apps rely upon the operating system for RAW conversion. Even Lightroom Mobile, which has its own conversion pipeline, relies on iOS for displaying previews before import. My question for your technical connections at Fujifilm are, how does the partnership, if any, work between Fujifilm and Apple? I'm not quite sure really on this one. What do you think?
I have no idea. And I mean, I know I'm not going to, Windows has its foibles and so does the Mac stuff, but I know that the Apple, I think it's, the problem with Apple, I think, from what I can gather, is that they don't release their iOS betas and things like that and what have you. It kind of just comes out of the blue, doesn't it? Whereas with Windows, Microsoft, you constantly, it's out. It's like Windows. The next version of Windows 10 is usually in the wild on the what they call the preview ring, a good 9-10 months beforehand. So it might be something to do with that. Don't know, but yeah, ultimately it's the operating system that needs to see the files. Windows, by the way, Windows 10 natively doesn't see that RAW file. I mean, it will see them and will import them and work with them and Lightroom and all that kind of stuff, but you won't be able to see the thumbnails unless you install a little download that Microsoft supply, little codec.
All right, so there's a similar kind of problem going on there, is there?
Well, I'm not sure whether he means that the iOS stuff can't actually see the files. Well, Windows can. It just doesn't show you the little previews until you download the little codec. But I don't know. I mean, there's always a lag.
Yeah, it's lagging. Is that what you get as well, Kev? It's lagging, Dad. It's lagging. The internet's lagging.
Turn the internet up.
We usually get that. Do you play Rocket League much still?
Not really. No. I must admit. Albie's into his flight sim now.
Oh, is he? Well, that's the
we spent hours flying.
Is he? Going sort of transatlantic and stuff. Well, usually we get the lagging thing with Rocket League. It's lagging. I can't see the ball, Dad. Lagging. Like it's all my fault. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thank you to our guest, Edmond Terakopian. If you've liked any of the stuff on the show and you want to comment about it, there's go and make one of those review things that we used to talk about a lot. They're still very relevant, and share on Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of stuff.
Love us on Patreon.
Oh yes. And see you on the Facebook group for any questions you have about today's show. Play nice in there, of course. Send your questions in to click@fujicast.co.uk. Music from Blue Wednesday with supporting music from the incredible artlist.iron. There we go, Kev. We've done our first lockdown one again. How did it feel? Did it feel all right, minus the beer?
Yeah, it was all right.
Kev needs the beer.
I need to work on it a bit. I need to work on my
Well, it's nice to hear the family sort of coming through the door every possible opportunity as well.
Of course, yeah. We need to work on the timing next time as well.
Right, we'll see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.